April 9th, 2018. We had just come back from an incredible trip to South Africa to celebrate our dear friend's wedding in Cape Town, in the Cape Town area. And while we were there, we were having so much fun. We drank, we smoked cigarettes, we barely slept, we ate everything we could. Every single day felt like an amazing adventure or an incredible party. And obviously, we were extremely sad that we had to come back to the States to live our regular lives. But at the same time, we were also excited to come home. And if you fast forward a couple days after we arrived, we're super jet lagged, super tired. We had just, beat up our bodies and essentially lived life to the fullest, as people like to say. And after all the abuse that our bodies went through and all the different habits that we had developed from the years past, my wife and I decided to get back to going to the gym. We have to get our exercises in. We can't continue the habits that we have. And so 2 or 3 days after our 24-hour travel back from South Africa, super jet lagged, super tired, body's completely beat up. We haven't really been giving it the food that it needs. We wake up at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and we're like, hey, let's go to the gym. And so I get up, I put on my gym shorts, I put on my shirt, I go to the bathroom, basically half dead, and I wash my face and we go downstairs. And before we go to the gym, I decided to take 1 scoop of pre-workout, which has a ton of caffeine in it. It's called C4, I believe. And I put a scoop of that in water, swirl it around, chugged it, got into the car, started driving. On the way to the gym, as we were going there, I started getting these very weird feelings that I got once before. I noticed that my heart felt like it dropped, and then I started hearing this. Just my heartbeat right in my ear, speeding up. My field of vision got super tight. I started feeling very hyper aware of my surroundings, like something bad was gonna happen, just very alert. And I started breathing a little bit quicker. Just getting that feeling. And then it recalled me back to one other time that I experienced before that was extremely similar. 1 or 2 years before that, I was driving down a highway and I had gotten a smell of something burning. Just a smell of I don't know if it was wood or rubber or something. And I remember that smell threw me into this very heightened sense of awareness. I felt the same exact thing driving down the road. My heart rate started beating super hard and fast. My field of vision got really narrow. I started getting really, really concerned that something bad was going to happen. And then I was thinking about pulling over and eventually kind of died down. And I was like, that was really weird. That never happened to me before. As we were driving to the gym, I felt sort of a little bit more calmed down. It's like, okay, so maybe it's something that, maybe it's because of my diet or because I'm maybe drinking too much caffeine or something. I'm not, my body, I'm getting older. Okay, something else is going on. I'm not really sure what. But it didn't feel life-threatening. It didn't feel like something too serious. Then once we got to the gym, I got out of the car, I went on the elliptical, and I started going, I'm like, okay, we'll shrug this off. The workout's gonna feel really good. By now it's like 6 a.m. in the morning, 5:45 in the morning. We start going in the elliptical. And then I remember having my hands on the heart rate monitors. And then the heart rate monitors, not even 1 minute on the elliptical was reading 115, 120. And I'm like, okay, I'm super out of shape. Okay, I just started walking. This is normal. This is what happens. And, I'm sure I'm jet lagged and I didn't get enough sleep and I'm not eating well. Normal. It is what it is. Then I started looking at the heart rate monitor very closely and it went from 120 to 130 to 140 to 150 to 160. And this happened in the span of 5-10 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? What is going on? So I started feeling this tightness in my chest, started getting really tight here. I'm like, okay, something's wrong. So I stopped and I started walking around the gym, sort of pacing. And then I started noticing my heart rate again in my head, just beating like this, hard and loud. And I started feeling really panicky, started getting really, really nervous. I'm like, okay, what is going on? Am I having a heart attack? Is this the start of a heart attack? I'm not really sure what's going on. Then I go into the locker room trying to calm myself down and I start feeling my jaw starts to get a little cramped out and I can't move it anymore. So it starts getting cramped. And by that point, I'm super convinced that I'm having some sort of heart attack or some sort of condition. And by now I'm just full blown, just super worried that something really bad's happening. And I remember walking out of the locker room. Another person was crossing my path. And I'm like, is it normal for your jaw to stay like this? Obviously, in my state of panic, I don't know what's happening. And the person's like, no, it's definitely not normal that your jaw is just stuck in place. And that statement threw me into this sort of spiral of, oh my God, I'm totally having a freaking heart attack. I might die. I'm literally so afraid. And all I remember is my jaw was locked, and then I felt my eyelids start to close, like just started to close like this. And then I'm like, okay, what I need to do now is just lay down on my back and just see what happens. I remember laying down on my back, and then by this point, my eyes were completely shut. I couldn't move my jaw, and then my arms started to seize up like this. They just started to get like this, and I couldn't move anything. And I was just laying on my back. And I remember this commotion around me. I remember my wife's voice, baby, are you okay? Baby, are you okay? And I remember laying down like, I love you. I love you. And I'm trying to tell her I love you because I honestly thought I was going to die. I had the amount of fear that I was experiencing during that time was just so overwhelming. And all I remember, the noise I remember is this. My heart pounding so hard and so loud in my head. Then what finally happened is somebody called 911, and what seemed like a really long time, looking back after talking to my wife, it was maybe 1 or 2 minutes. If that, ambulance showed up, and they put me into the ambulance. And I remember trying to communicate with the person in the ambulance, the EMT. And I'm like, what happened? What's wrong? I'm having a heart attack. He's like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And I remember having an oxygen mask on my face, and he was taking measurements of my blood oxygen level and my CO2 in my blood. And I remember him saying, "Okay, yeah, that's what I expected. That's what I expected was happening." And I'm like, "What happened? What happened?" He's like, "You're hyperventilating." I'm like, okay, interesting. In my head, I'm like, I'm hyperventilating. Okay, and I'm like, "Is it a heart attack? Is it a heart attack?" He's like, "I don't think it's a heart attack. I don't think it's a heart attack. We have you hooked up to a EKG or ECG, whatever that thing is that tracks your sort of heart condition at that time." It's like, it doesn't look like a heart attack, but we're going to take you to the hospital and see what happens. And then at that point, I started feeling a little bit calmer. I'm like, okay. Maybe this is something, maybe with my lungs or something else in my head. I still had a feeling that it was something serious. And we show up to the hospital. And, I'm at the hospital, and they run checks of my heart, they run checks of my lungs, and by then I'm feeling a little bit better, but I'm still really concerned and worried about what happens. Then about an hour later, the doctor shows up, and he says, "Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're good. You hyperventilated. Your heart looks fine. Your lungs look fine. Yeah, you're fine. You can just go home." And I'm just standing there, and I'm like, "Sure?" I literally felt like I was dying. I felt like I was completely just in a state where something was terrible was happening. Like, "No, you're fine. Go home. You're fine. Your vitals are good. Your liver enzyme is a little high. I'm assuming because you've been drinking quite a bit in South Africa or whatever. But no, you're fine. Just go home. You're good." Like, okay, this is really weird. Okay, I go home. No problem. And then for the rest of the day, I felt a little bit more calm. I'm like, okay, good. I mean, at least there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. It doesn't seem like there's anything wrong. And then what started happening from that point is every single night when I went to bed, there were certain positions that I couldn't sleep because whenever I would lay my head on the pillow, I don't know if it's something that I didn't notice before or just something my subconscious completely ignored, is I could hear my heartbeat. I could hear my heartbeat in my ear. So I could hear this, right? And then I noticed when I would hear it, it would make me really concerned and really anxious. It would make me super, super worried. It harkened me back to that time when I was laying on the ground on the gym thinking I was going to die. And then that continued to happen for days on end, for weeks on end. And I could not get a good night's sleep. It didn't matter how I slept. If I got any sense that my heart rate was beating or going more than I thought it should have, I would get really, really concerned that there's something wrong with me. And the things that started creeping into my mind is, oh my God, they forgot to run a test. They didn't catch something that's wrong with me. Am I sure they ran a test on my heart? There has to be something wrong with my heart. And anytime I would think that I'm laying asleep, the freaking heart pounds so loud. And many nights I would just tremble on my bed and I could not stop it. It got to a point where during the day, if I walked too fast or I did something that I felt would make my heart run faster or beat faster, it would make me so nervous and so concerned that there was something wrong with me, that my heart would be taking on too much stress. I would get so concerned that if I do anything that's even walking up a hill or anything like that, my heart would be too weak to take it. And I would hear my freaking heartbeat again and again and again and again. It got so bad to a point where there were nights that I had to get out of bed and walk around while I was shaking like crazy. And then I started to realize, what has happened to my life? Have I completely lost who I am? Am I never going to recover for this? What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? There's something wrong with me, and I don't understand what's wrong with me. And one night in particular, I remember waking up to the thought of this being so unbearable. It was so unbearable. I could not sleep. I was in a sense of panic, like something was going to happen that was going to be so bad. And my heart was just going to give out, to the point where I was like, I can't live like this. Like, this is too much. I can't do it. And I didn't know what to do. So I went online, and I went on this website called BetterHelp. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but I went online, and I'm like, I need to talk to somebody. My wife's like, are you okay? Like this, my wife has been so helpful during this time, but obviously she's not a doctor or expert. She doesn't know what's happening exactly. I was like, I need to talk to somebody right now. I really feel like something terrible is going to happen. I can't deal with this. I really can't. So my wife is like, try this website. I think they can help you right away. It's like 3:00 in the morning. So I jump on the website, and I'm like, and I just basically write out all the thoughts that are going through my head. I'm just so afraid of my heart giving out. I feel like there's some sort of issue with my heart that they haven't captured. And anytime I do something, I feel my heart beating so hard. And I'm so afraid that just being alive is going to make my heart give out, because it's beating so hard, and I'm so afraid. And what I noticed is just me writing this down was helpful for me, because I was able to write out exactly what was happening to me. And so I got a little bit less nervous. I'm like, okay, so if I'm able to do this right now, it's helping me for whatever reason, I'm happy. And then an hour later, somebody came out and was like, hey, completely understand what's going on. Really sorry it's going through it. Would you like to talk sometime later, right? So we scheduled something, and I started talking to, a therapist online. And so that's when I started to realize through that conversation is that I was suffering from anxiety. And so what I learned is that there were certain things that were happening to my body that when I felt something that would trigger that anxiety, in this case for me was the heartbeat in my head, or something that I was doing physical that would trigger my heart to beat faster, that it would make me extremely anxious, and it would make me really, really afraid for my heart and for myself. It's almost like PTSD in a sense, is how it was described to me. And then I also started realizing after those conversations is that things like coffee and caffeine were making it way worse. And then what I also started to realize is that exercise itself would make me so anxious, because I would be so afraid to get myself back in that situation of being on the floor on my back, almost dying, right? And so it wasn't even the fear of having a heart attack that was making me afraid. It was the fear of having that fear again, laying on the ground, of that heartbeat going on in my head and in my ear that I could not stop, and would make me so afraid. And so I cut caffeine out of my life. That seemed to help a little bit. But to be completely honest, it was getting to a point where I was not able to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. I was afraid to exercise at all. I would still push myself to go to the gym, but I would feel anxious the whole time I was there. So I was always afraid to push myself. I would go so weak. I would go so slow. And I started to modify my life to remove myself from any situation that could potentially make my heart rate go up. So it could be anything: roller coasters, watching something exciting, watching a movie that would make me feel a certain way. I remember sitting down on the couch when we were watching a movie, and there were certain scenes in there that were very action-paced, or would make your heart rate go up. And then I would get so anxious, because I'm like, oh my God, my heart rate's going faster. Oh my God, am I going to have a heart attack? Oh my God, is the whole thing going to happen again? And then I could feel my body, all these sensations start to go through. My chest will tighten up, my fingers will start, and my hands will start to shake. And then my mental was so messed up. It was always focused on the heartbeat and the fact that if I was going to have this feeling for too long, I would have a heart attack and die, because my heart can't take it. It was horrific. It was so bad. And I couldn't stop it. And the thing that really started bothering me is that I was losing control of my life. I could not do the things anymore that I enjoyed. And I was afraid to try new things because of how it made me feel. And at that point, I was in such a dark place. I was just like, I don't know if I can live like this. Like, what can I do? This is crazy. So I started talking to my doctor. My doctor recommended taking a pill, I'm guessing either Xanax or something that would help with anxiety. But at that point, when I sat down and I'm like, okay, the thing I really don't want to do is rely on a pill or some sort of medicine that's going to help me get over this. And of course, I'm not saying this as a way for you to make that decision for yourself if you're suffering from this. This was a decision that I made for myself. For me, the logical thing that I decided in my brain, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it has helped me, and that's why I'm sharing the story with you. My decision was no pill. I need to figure out what the hell happened and how to reverse it. Because if my brain got me to this position, there's got to be a way to reverse that. There has to be a way. There has to be a way. There's something that happened that got me to this point. And so what I did is I switched my therapist over to somebody else. Her name's Dr. Flora. And this is when things started to change. And there was one piece of advice that she gave me that completely changed my approach to my anxiety. And the advice that she gave me is that to get on the other side of anxiety, you don't go around it, you go through it. You have to go through it. You can't try to dance around the feelings and try to continue doing your life while those feelings are happening. You have to face the feelings of anxiety and you have to go through it. You have to essentially go through that wall. And you have to make it happen. And the big concept here that she shared with me was inoculation. And so if you look at the formal definition of inoculation, this is something that could be related to a vaccine, is where you introduce a pathogen or a vaccine that allows you to essentially get your body used to that thing, and then it knows how to fight it. And then the thing that I was really taught to do in these situations is to sit down, and whenever you feel those feelings of anxiety, you dare it to come on. You dare that feeling to do its worst on you. And that sounded completely batshit crazy when I heard it. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. You're asking me to just lean into my anxiety so I can freaking die from a heart attack. My heart rate's gonna go so freaking high to the point of collapse. And she's like, try it, see what happens. Try it. I bet you're not gonna die. I bet you nothing bad's gonna happen. Try it, see what happens. I'm like, okay. And so for the next few days, I was honestly afraid because anytime those feelings would come up, I would feel, okay, I just can't. Like, I feel so panicked. I feel so constrained and I feel so afraid to do anything. But then I started thinking again, okay, so are you really going to live your life this way? Are you really going to be in a situation where you're going to avoid everything that you like to do or really anything that would make the slightest bit of your heart rate go up? And that's your life now? That's what you're decided to do now? Or are you going to try some stuff that might be weird or something that you feel was not going to work? Or are you going to start trying things to actually resolve this? You told yourself you're not going to take any pills. And so you have to figure out a way to make this go away. So test your hypothesis. Test your logic. See if it works out. And then the moment for me came weeks after that conversation, but I had finally made the decision to face it head on. And really where my anxiety was worse was when I was in bed. When I was in bed and my head is down on the pillow and my ear is against the pillow like this, and I could hear my heart rate. And so I made the decision that I said, okay, instead of tossing and turning and getting up and trying to avoid my heartbeat in my head out of fear that it's going to cause some insane heartbreak where my heart's just going to jump out of my chest and kill me, I'm just going to say, screw it. I'm going to get in my most comfortable position that I've slept in for my entire freaking life. And if the freaking heartbeat explodes and I die, so be it. If my body is so freaking shitty that I can't lay down on my side and sleep and instead I die, maybe I just deserve to die. It is what it is. What else am I supposed to do? If I'm not meant to sleep on my side because it kills me, that seems like a very weak body. That seems like something that has happened that it's just completely destroyed my ability to live anymore. And so I just, out of desperation, I'm like, literally, fuck it. It is what it is. I'm just going to lay on my side. And if it's going to kill me, it's going to kill me. That's it. And of course, I told that to myself, but the feeling of fear was so prevalent and so strong. And all I remember from this moment is this, from start to end. And I remember my body shaking. I remember sweating. My chest was getting super, super tight. And I remember my wife saying, baby, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. And I'm so afraid. My heart rate's going crazy. And then I remember this. It slowed down. My body started to release itself. I could feel my chest opening up. Could feel my trembling coming down. I remember for the first time in what felt like years. And from that point, it would have been about 2 years since I had my initial thing at the gym. That was the first time I felt like I had a freaking victory in my life. First time in 2 years that I felt like I had a victory by just laying there and facing that fear and facing that extreme feeling that something terrible is going to happen if you continue doing the thing that you're doing. And what that taught me is that the anxiety cannot kill me. It can't kill me. My entire fear was based on that moment at the gym of my heart rate going up so high that it was going to cause a heart attack, that somehow my heart was weak, that there was something wrong with me. And then doing these things that are going to make my heart go faster was going to end up killing me or do something terrible to me. Laying down through that fear, through that panic, it helped me so much that from that point forward, the one thing that I started to build that I had completely lost in my life was bravery. I was brave again. I felt like I could take risks again. I felt like I could do things that I used to do. I could get my life back. And so from that point forward, anytime I had that feeling of anxiety, what I told myself is, fuck it. What's the worst that can happen? And I just took it head on. And sometimes, I'll be honest, I couldn't handle it. I would revert back to my fear of, oh my God, if I continue doing this thing, it's going to be terrible. It's my heart, it's going to jump out of my chest. But that one moment that I had in my bed when I was so freaking afraid that I was going to die from a heart attack, and I overcame, now I had one example that I could use in my head that said, hey, but remember that one time that nothing happened? Same thing is going to happen here. So don't be afraid. And then I started building a library of these different moments that I overcame, that I was brave, that I was able to overcome those incredibly painful, incredible fear of something terrible happening to me. And then over time, it got easier and easier and easier and easier and easier and easier. And it happened way less often, way less often, way less often. And it's gotten to the point now, 4 years later, almost 4 years later, that I feel like I finally overcame my anxiety. And it doesn't mean that those feelings have completely disappeared. What I know now is that if I experience those feelings, I now know that they can't hurt me. All it is, it's my body is telling me that, hey, there's something going on in your life right now that's reminding you of that really, really bad time you had at the gym. But remember, the reason why you were like that is not because there's something wrong with you or something wrong with your heart. It's because you hyperventilated because you thought there's something wrong with you, okay? There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. And even though those feelings might exist, it's so much easier to deal with them now. And now I've gotten to the point where even 7 days ago, I started drinking caffeinated coffee again. I completely removed that from my life. And honestly, I was pretty happy by doing it. You don't really need caffeine to operate your daily life. But I missed that taste. I missed that routine so much. I missed that little rush that you get from the caffeine when you drink and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to take on the world. 7 days ago, I was able to pick it up again. I've been going to the gym and pushing myself. I've gone on runs and I'm pushing myself. I'm getting my heart rate up as high as I need it to be without panicking. And I'm not afraid to try new things. And not only am I back to where I used to be, I'm further along because now I've learned new things about myself. This anxiety that I've lived with for the last 4 years, it has been there for much longer. I recall back to when I was a kid, I was so nervous to be around people. I would go to school when I was in high school, and I was so afraid of just fitting in and trying to be friends with people. I was so afraid to talk with others. My armpits would get sweaty, and then I would get afraid of my armpits getting sweaty, which would make them even sweatier. I was such a nervous wreck. It could be that the gym episode and everything that has happened to me in the last 4 years was a physical manifestation or something that happened in my head that brought it forward even harder to the point where I had to really address it and deal with it. But in the end, I am so incredibly thankful for those days and years that I went through this anxiety. It taught me so much about myself. My hope for this video is for those that are currently suffering from anxiety or think they're suffering from anxiety and perhaps they don't have a means for help. They're afraid to talk to other people. They're afraid to talk to others about it. They don't really know where to go from here. My hope with this video is to share my story in hopes that there's some similarities between us And maybe my methods could work for you. But ultimately, if you think you're suffering from anxiety or you think there's something wrong with you, try to get some help. Try your best to get some help and know that you're so not alone. I think there's so many of us that suffer from anxiety and suffer from panic attacks and other mental health problems, especially in this day and age of social media and everything else that's going on. That the more of us talk about it and the more of us are open and vulnerable about our feelings, I think it's going to create an incredible community of us that have dealt with anxiety and panic attacks and other mental health problems. And we can come together and really figure out, okay, how do we move forward? And of course, I'm not a professional. I'm not a medical expert. I am not here to solve your problem. But what I remember very, very vividly while I was going through my anxiety is going online and finding communities of other people having their issues. I could relate so much with what was going on. I could relate so much with those people to really understand what was going on in their lives with anxiety. And that connection that I made really assured me that, hey, I'm not alone. There's so many other people out there that are suffering from the same thing, and they're still alive. They're still trying to live. They're still trying to figure out how to solve their problem. And so this is my contribution to that community. And I really, really hope this helps you, even in the slightest way. What worked for me could work for you, or it could not work for you. I have no idea, but just know that you're not alone. And then this journey of anxiety could ultimately turn into a very big positive if you choose to overcome it in the ways that you think you can overcome, with either through help or through what I said in this video or whatever else. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there are ways to overcome it. And I'm a perfect example of this. I don't know if in 10 years' time it's going to come back and ruin my life again, or get me in a situation where I'm very, very uncomfortable, or just straight out, just super panicked that I can't live my life that way anymore. I have no idea. But what I can tell you right now is that I was able to overcome my anxiety. I was able to get there. And even though I experienced it from time to time, it's no longer controlling my life. I've gone through it. I've made it happen. And I think everybody can do the same. Every single person on this planet can do the same. Best of luck in this journey. You can do it. You can. And I hope this helps you in any way possible. Thank you so much for watching.